This is the end of the ledge of rock that extends 364 metres seaward at the north side of the harbour breakwater, plus the existing tidal rocks that stretch even beyond that. These rocks are the reason for the reduction in the wave height at the south end of the bay. Most of the following pictures are taken from me standing on the top of the end of that sewer pipe. Professor Alistair McIntyre of Cambridge University, a world-renowned wave expert, explains that waves can be reduced by 4 means: impact, diversion, sonic and aeration. All 4 of these methods of reducing the wave combine at this point. And in later pictures in this video you will see how there's a vast area of white disturbed water exists here, and the waves enter that water but they don't flow ashore. Here we're looking ashore and you can see the flats behind where the Carron River mouth is, which is well round the corner, again even more so here. You'll notice the texture of the surface of the rock. Underlying solid rock, but with these big boulders stretched all the way ashore along it. The degree of aeration and disturbance caused by these rocks is the key to preventing the waves getting ashore. Here we see the equinox high tide at the mouth of the river. Just turned, you can see about an inch of fall. And here we have the exit of the Arbuthnot drain, showing again just beginning to fall, but the level that the highest spring tide gets to. Here we have the spring tide level at the bridge. Now historically, at the end of the wall opposite, that is where the river escaped into the sea without hindrance. Here we look upstream from the bridge and you can see how much of the old river mouth has been taken up by infill, even more so here. When that full width of that channel reached the ends of the retaining wall and the water could flow over the beach, it could not get any higher in the river. Here looking upstream at the top of the tide, and you can see how little effect it has on water level behind John Briggs's shop. Now from the drone video, looking south, you can see the far end of the bay, very little wave action evident. There is an area of white water. You see the waves coming in seaward of the breakwater, entering that area of white water, but then the waves don't continue to flow up the beach. You'll notice that it's white water again, but there is no evidence of waves running up along the rock shelf behind the old town. Again, that large area of disturbed white water where it's being rebounded and aerated, and you can see virtually a gap between that area where the waves are now entering and immediately to the north side of that white water. Suddenly the waves can roll ashore, but there is absolutely no evidence of large waves impacting on the beach at the mouth of the River Carron, as JBA's Rivermouth reports tries to suggest is the most exposed and highest waves on the beach. There's no question about the magnitude of the seas entering that area of white water behind the harbour, but it just takes all the steam out of them, as Professor McIntyre suggested. This is why, despite filming there from the shore for over 5 years, I have never been able to record dangerous seas approaching the river mouth on any occasion. These old pictures, this was in '98, shows the river mouth with the red markers. You can see that once the river reached that point at the top of the beach, it could not get any higher than the beach level because the water was pouring over the top of the beach and running down the beach and spreading out. You can also see the mill lade coming in at the left hand side of the picture. Again, this back from 1926. And again, even when the combined rivers flowed along there, as soon as the water reached the end of those walls marked in red, it was free to spread out without limit and could not create an increased flood height in the river. This is just at high tide on Thursday the 28th. I'm just going to go down to the sea and have a look at the sea state. This is looking north along the beach, and the heavy swells rather more offshore, and this is approximately at high tide. It's 2:25 to be exact. Quite a heavy swell and waves coming onto the beach. Looking south towards and across the river mouth. Looking south towards the river mouth and the heavy seas rolling in onto the beach, as heavy as they are at this south end of the bay. You'll observe that there is absolutely no waves going up the river at all, despite the fact this is at the peak of high water. I would not be surprised if later in the afternoon, when the tide starts to ebb, that we might see some soliton waves generated. But there's certainly no marine waves getting into the river at all. This is videoing across the river mouth and the seas coming onto the shore at this end of the bay, further illustrating that the waves do not penetrate into the river mouth in any shape or form. You'll notice that there is far less motion at this end of the bay, as we have described earlier and explained about the barrier seaward of here that prevents the waves of that magnitude coming onto the beach in this area. As I swing north into the open bay, it's an entirely different vision. Plenty of heavy seas coming ashore. But that's why no waves ever penetrated into the River Carron. This is Saturday the 21st of March at the spring equinox, looking along the beach towards the mouth of the River Carron. There's quite a heavy swell flowing onto the beach, and you'll notice that the waves are keeping an equidistant pattern as they flow shoreward. This is because the seabed in front of the River Carron extends a long way seaward, almost to be level with the harbour, and that distance out is revealed at high tide, so you never have more than a maximum of 14 feet of water in all that distance. So there is no case of the waves piling up as they approach the shore, as illustrated in the computer-generated image in JBA's Rock Armour and Rivermouth report. This groin immediately in front of where we're filming breaks the wave running along the rock wall from the harbour, but it is responsible for a cavitational effect, pulling all the fine sand and shingle away from this point and leaving the beach littered with large boulders and stones. So when the council removes shingle from further along the beach and deposits it in this point, it is always sucked away and carried off seaward with the north-south drift. The angle that the waves are flowing onto the beach today is that the river means that the river mouth is at its most exposed angle. Now we're just looking along towards the Cowie end of the beach with the Carron River mouth in the foreground and the obvious white water rolling onto the beach all the way along. When you look from this angle, you would assume that the waves might be going up the river, but this just does not happen. They roll back and forth in the river mouth, but they don't have the volume or velocity to cause any problem in the river mouth at all. Now we're right at the river mouth, and you can see the waves rolling into it and apparently almost stopping because they can't overcome the water coming down. And when the waves run up the beach on either side of the river mouth, they'll pour over the rocks and into the river mouth and raise the level of water, but they don't have any onward velocity, and so no waves go up the river. You can see here how little space there is for any wave action coming into the river mouth. The only waves that are ever generated up the river are our soliton waves. And my video on the solitons has now been downloaded more than 4,000 times, and I'm amazed to find on the internet how many educational establishments have adopted it and are showing it, because apparently naturally created soliton wave videos were in very short supply. Here I've gone up to the bridge looking down the river channel towards the river mouth, and you can see just how smooth and flat it is. It's high because the tide is maintaining it. The river can't escape in any volume, but there is absolutely no trace of any waves. This is looking across the river mouth towards the harbour, and you can see the slope on the beach where the water runs back off the beach where the waves south of the river mouth have flown up the beach and pours into the channel entrance. But it has no forward velocity. Here you see a classical example. The water has come up over the beach at the sides and then will pour back into the river, but it doesn't drive any waves into the river because it simply doesn't have the volume and velocity. As soon as the surge is past, the river is pouring seaward again without any problem. We have never been able to record any marine wave entering the river at any time. The only waves we have recorded and demonstrated upriver are the naturally generated solitons.